Hogstye.
Hey, everybody. I hope you had a happy, Merry Christmas. And we're coming up on the new year already. Welcome to the Hogseye. It's Alex. I'm back. We got Steve. We got Dave. Guys, did you get anything good for the holidays?
I got a
Yes, I
bag of
did.
coal from Santa Claus.
Oh, Dave, you seemed excited. What did you get?
Well, for years I've been trying to get a hold of some kind of autographed memorabilia of my Redskin hero, and I finally got one, and from my wife. And in fact, I'm already getting kind of emotional about it right now. And Dowell Green.
Oh, you
So
got a Gerald Green
Oh.
thing?
yes.
Nice.
So eventually, back behind me, you're gonna see. I'm gonna put a jersey with that, everything, in this little pic in this jersey plaque frame with that picture and stuff in there. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna finally lock all that in place, and then I finally, after all these years, have my own Dowell Green shrine.
Now, did she come across Steel Green somewhere, or did she buy this thing for you?
Well, I well, she knew I've been wanting one for a long time. She got outbid on one. She saw another one, but when she went to put the bid in, the bid was already closed. And last minute she came across another one, threw a bid in for it, and won it.
Daryl's
So,
the guy I always wanted to meet and never did.
me too. I'm right there with you.
I don't count it because it was just an autograph signing. So I got it to go to one of those with Art Monk back when he was still
Oh, I
playing.
did too.
And I was a little kid. He was, what everyone says. He's very quiet, very reserved at those
I
things.
got to talk to him for like 5 or 10 minutes at one of those things because the line, like they had, I forget what happened, but the line like totally stagnated with me standing right there with him, and so I just kind of was able to chat with him for like a few minutes, and super nice guy. I still have his photo.
Everyone's always said that about
Oh yeah,
him.
very humble. But
Yeah.
Daryl's not humble. I've always kind of wondered,
He's
Dave. It's like,
nice.
well,
Everyone
I
says
don't
he's
know.
nice.
I mean, is he? I mean, I've always kind of wondered if Daryl's somebody you might regret meeting if you actually met him.
We've
I
talked
don't know.
about this. Just text Rick. Rick swears that Daryl's a good guy.
And that's Rick knows him. Rick's enough. That's
It almost seems like he has two switches, or one switch where on the field, man, he looks like he's over the top a bit. He appears to be arrogant and so forth because that's how he played that position.
Yeah.
Like he was the best in the league, which he was, period. And then off the field, from anything I've ever heard, is just like what you mentioned about what Rick said, super nice and real gracious to meet his fans, everything. So
There's probably, and it's probably just me being ridiculous, but I think there's a reason why those guys were good, and part of it was all those personalities melded together and were very selfish.
Yeah.
You can't have a team full like Deion Sanders and win,
No.
Well, I mean, look at what we talked about before the show with the posse. Hey, you talked about Ricky Sanders and Art Monk both being introverts, and Gary Clark with that flashy one. But they all mixed together. They were great teammates, and
yeah, if people want to hear a great interview with Ricky Sanders, we had him on the show for an hour.
Years ago now.
Yeah, years ago, and I kind of know him a little bit, and he was gracious enough to do that. So if you search it out, he talked about a whole bunch of really interesting things.
Mm-hmm. He gave us some great off the air stuff too.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I do remember one thing he told us on the air was that he did say Darryl Green really did run a 4.140.
Oh yeah. Well,
that's not a myth. Ricky said he was there and saw it.
Rick Snyder is one of the few guys who actually knows what Darryl ran when he did the 40 for his 60th birthday, which was, I think, this year. Because I don't know if you guys listened to his show, but he was talking about how Darryl wanted to run the 40 again for his 60th, and he swore everybody he told to secrecy, but let's just say it would still be considered NFL quality 40 times for a 6-year-old.
I would not be surprised.
I don't think he's in the 4.1 category. Lower, Steve, is what I heard.
I'm typing in. I'm trying to guess, and we can't say it on the air because Alex is
about that. That's legit, the rumor is that's about where it was.
Sorry, folks, we can't disclose the number.
Let's just say it's pretty fast for a 60-year-old.
Right. I played the same game, I think, with Rick at one point, and he wouldn't tell me, but let's just say that's where it ended up, Steve.
I could run that fast too. I mean, I'm confident.
Yeah, sure you could. So invert the numbers and maybe you could.
I was faster than at one point in time I could crack 5. I'll say that.
Okay.
So I was almost there to Daryl Green.
Right. Sure.
4-1, 4-9, whatever, 4-8. I mean, I'm close.
I mean, look, so you can outrun some of the O linemen these days.
Barely. I wonder what I could do now. I'm probably not. I don't know if I can crack 6 now.
Stretch. Do a lot of stretching first, because
who's the guy? Rich Eisen does it every year.
Yeah.
And I think one point in time he did get down into the 6s for that.
Did he?
I think he did. Yeah.
He also does it in dress shoes, which is ridiculous. I would be hurting
it's a
for
show.
a month. Yeah,
well, it's a show. I mean,
I know. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So I obviously got my stadium seat. That was my gift for myself for Christmas. I put pictures of that on our site. Everyone seemed to enjoy those.
I bought myself a new guitar for Christmas.
Nice. Do you want to say what kind?
No? It's Charvel. It's Charvel Warren DeMartini signature model Charvel.
Okay.
Cool. Great tone.
Good tone. You happy?
You don't
with
know
it?
who I'm talking about, do you?
No idea. I don't know guitar.
He is the lead guitarist for Rat.
Oh, okay.
Real shredder type, but it has a great tone, man. It's just unbelievable guitar.
How many? You have a bunch of guitars,
I've
don't
got
you?
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everyone
Who
needs a
knows?
hobby.
Well, who knows? My grandson might get to that point because he loves music. My daughter got him a ukulele. Loves playing it because his father plays a guitar and a ukulele. He's pretty good at it. So he's memorized with him every time he plays it. So
definitely get him an electric guitar and a decent little amp.
Yeah. Get him an electric ukulele too. Just let's see.
There's probably a such thing out there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
I guarantee you there is. My wife has a ukulele that she's never bothered learning to play. She just bought one on a whim.
My problem is I have a 50-watt tube amp in my house, and so it's like you have to be careful playing stuff like that because, if people are in the house, it's like loud.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you really should have like a noise-proof space.
Well, it has a power attenuator. I can
of
crank
course.
it down to 20 watts, which is still loud, but not nearly
Plenty,
as loud.
Yeah. Yeah, so why don't we should just get into the actual meat of the show. Washington lost. Let's start with the game versus San Francisco. Washington lost. Wasn't very close, honestly, throughout the whole game. I know they stayed tied for the first half for the most part. But this kind of went the way I think we all thought it would in the end, this defeat.
Yeah, I thought they hung in there for more than I thought they would. So some stats.
Sure.
The important ones. Taylor Heinicke, 13 of 18, 166 yards.
Right.
Through 3 quarters. Carson Wentz stepped in, 12 for 16, 123 yards. They both had fairly similar quarterback ratings, 114, 117 ratings. 117. Right. Brian Robinson only averaged 2.6 yards per carry on 22 carries. Terry McLaurin, 4 for 77. Jahan Dotson, 6 for 76. Taylor Heinicke, one fumble, 1 loss. We're going to get into that. Dave's done a whole bunch of digging into that. Defense, David Mayo, 9 tackles. Daron Payne had a sack. Benjamin St. Juste had a sack. And James Smith-Williams had a sack. And there's no Trustway game today, unfortunately. I've just been so bummed this year about this. He was 4 for 192. So
he basically just beat out, the quarterbacks individually.
He didn't come close to beating out the quarterbacks. They had 270 yards between them.
No, each of them individually.
Oh, individually, yeah, absolutely. It's time we need to have like a Tress 300-yard game again. That's what I'm rooting for.
That is what you root for, Steve. That is definitely a Steve thing. That's become your Tressway obsession. It's very fun.
You might get that in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
If Washington gets there, I might get that. Yes.
Yeah, because if they get in the playoffs, they're not going very deep. So.
No.
So
thoughts on this game? I mean.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we save the obvious for the end.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're gonna have a whole discussion about the whole quarterback change. Let's talk about non-quarterback related
this
thoughts.
game went exactly how it was supposed to go for the most part. I mean, we knew Washington wasn't going to be able to run the ball. They needed to do something besides run the ball. The run pass split still ended up being about the same, 34 pass, 33 run. I think it needed to be more towards the passing angle, for them to have a better chance at it. The offensive line looked like a pathetic joke for the most part, I thought. Just terrible. The offensive line in this team, we can argue about the quarterback all day long, but the truth of the matter is the offensive line is the real downfall of this team, and that you can only blame Ron Rivera for.
Sure. And when we talk about the quarterbacks, there's some stuff to talk about related to all that. The offensive line was let down. The one thing that, and I give credit to San Francisco for this, Brian Robinson had a bunch of very nice runs throughout the game. He had some solid pickups, but his numbers look terrible because for every good run he had one where they stopped him in the backfield. And it was just really impressive of San Francisco because if those runs maybe even were just 1 or 2 yards, he has a totally different day. But he frequently was losing 3-4 yards on runs because guys were just getting to him before he could even get the ball half the time.
Yeah.
Yes. What can you
That's
say?
also on the line, by the way.
Yeah, it is. There's just, I don't know what else to say about the offensive line here. They need, I don't know if you guys listened to the latest Seasons of Discontent that was out on Wednesday morning. Our buddy Rick Snyder said it in that show. He said, they really need 5 new offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Probably can't happen just logistically, but they really do. They need to dump the entire offensive line. Maybe you keep Chase Roullier, but Chase Roullier can't stay healthy. That's his problem.
And maybe Sam Cosmi.
I don't know. Cosmi doesn't impress me too much.
Yeah, but he's only a year 2, though.
Granted, but I mean, does he wow you? Do you think he's the next John Jansen?
He doesn't wow me, and I don't think he's anywhere near close to the next John Jansen, but I think he misses that veteran guy and like Brandon Scherf to the inside of him. I think that's what he misses.
Trent Williams.
Well,
if they had handled that better, maybe Trent Williams would have been on Washington's side and not San Francisco's side.
Sure. Yeah, well, and if Dan Snyder would have handled this whole situation with the name properly, we'd still be the Redskins today.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. But, I hope the bag of Doritos they got for Trent was worth it.
Yeah, right.
I think somebody I was listening to, like one of the radio shows locally, brought this up. If you look at what they got for Trent Williams, it's basically Benjamin St. Juice. That was
what it
the
boils
draft
down
pick.
To?
Yeah, that was the draft pick we actually got some value out of. There was another guy who was useless.
Nice player, but Trent Williams is a potential Hall of Famer. You let him go in his prime because why? Because egos. He was unhappy and egos, and you had Bruce Allen there, and that's something that I would never forgive.
If you believe the reports, Bruce Allen wanted to keep him. Dan Snyder was the one that said no way.
Oh, I don't know how true that is. Bruce Allen said that in his deposition.
Yes.
Right. Who knows?
I don't know how true that would be.
I don't even care anymore. I mean,
no,
right or wrong.
I don't think any of us necessarily believe anything Bruce Allen can say there. He's trying to save his own ass.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But as far as back to the game, though, the one thing that I saw was a pretty big turning point is I'm going to jump to that 4th and goal that we went for. We got stopped. Mm-hmm. That 4th and goal would have been essentially a field goal attempt if Dotson was able to reel in that pass and he had to spin around for it. He had it right there. I don't know, the sun in his eyes or whatever it was, but 9 times out of 10 he catches that. If he catches that, he's gone because the corner was breaking to the inside. He had to come to the outside. Mm-hmm. That was a drop that I never see him ever make. I usually see him reel them in every time at Penn State and even for us here. That's that right there is 7 potentially, and then we go for a field goal. We're up 10-0. That dynamic of the game is completely different going forward. How much different? Do we hold that lead? Do we expand that lead? That if not, 49ers come back and they don't even lose a beat and they come back and kill us anyway? Who knows?
Can we
But
just
the
admit,
dynamic of that game is much different potentially right there.
maybe, but at the end of the day, I mean, from a neutral party observer kind of standpoint here, San Francisco's a much better team. Their
Oh,
defense
absolutely.
is much better. They're
Oh,
better
yes.
coached.
Yep.
Their offenses run better. I mean, Brock Purdy is not John Elway, okay? But he's well coached.
Mhm.
They drafted well. They prepared him well. He looks like he's ready. They drafted a kid who played a ton of college football, and they only threw him out there after injury. And there's enough talent around him that helps him
Yep.
do better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how good teams are run.
Well,
Right.
So this game went, and you're right, Dave. Look, you are right. I mean, if that touchdown happened, but you could say that for a lot of things. If San Francisco had scored a touchdown on the goal line, themselves, they got stopped. That would have changed things too. So,
mhm.
Well, the reason why I say that is because I've watched Dotson's career to this point, and you guys seen the catches he makes. That
Mhm.
catch is almost like a routine catch for him. When he dropped that, I was shocked because he doesn't drop them. He
I
never
mean, it
does.
happens. Even great
So,
receivers
sure.
like me will occasionally drop a ball.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I get
Not
that.
often.
No. So
Here's my thing. I mean, it did hit him right in the hands, and I know the announcer said it was probably the sun,
Yeah.
got
It
in
looked
his
bad.
face
I mean,
there.
it was as bad a drop as I've ever seen out of the guy, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I know there was a lot of after the fact. Well, Taylor Heinicke should have put it here instead of where it was. It hit him in the hands. Like
hit him in the hands and it was right there. He should have caught it.
like I don't want to
I don't
I'm not
blame
going to second guess all
quarterbacks
that.
in the NFL when the ball hits the receiver in the hands. If the
Right.
receiver gets their hand on it, they need to catch it.
Yeah, yeah. And look, he dropped it. It happens. We get
Yep.
it. Yeah, there were some, not a whole lot of decisions, honestly, by the coaching staff that I disliked. Obviously, I think going for it on 4th and 1, fine. Running it, fine. Even running it with Gibson, I'm fine with. The only thing I kind of dislike is like you went in jumbo set, so everyone knew it was going to be run, right? Like you're not passing out of that set.
And it was a slow developing play too. I
Yeah,
didn't really
yeah.
understand the play call in that play.
Every Scott Turner play is a slow developing play. You were talking about, Steve, how they were out coached, the 49ers.
I mean, kind of in
coach.
a general sense,
Yeah,
they're a
yeah.
well coached team.
I so miss, as much as I dislike Kyle Shanahan at times, and I so miss how he, McVay, Gruden, they had the ability to always scheme guys open, and they just don't do that here with this coaching staff.
Do you think those three guys sit around and they talk or on like a group chat, like, going, man, aren't we all lucky we got out of that hellhole?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure. Well, I don't know if Jay and Kyle Shanahan are on the same group chat. I'm sure Sean McVay has several group chats with, one with the Jay staff, one with the Shanahan staff, and then one with just all the, random hot chicks.
There might be like, well, yeah, there's a
hooking up
bunch
with.
of random hot chicks he's got for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I think it's funny to think about that there's like a group chat of like former Washington coaches, they're like recovering, like it's almost like an AA meeting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're
well,
meeting
I think
in the
what's so
bottom of a
frustrating.
church.
Yeah. Well, what I think is so frustrating with Scott Turner is that if you go to the opening drive last week, and then the one drive he had with Wentz, and even a touchdown pass to McLaurin out on a play design from Heinicke, he can scheme these receivers,
Mm-hmm.
open. He runs good schemes to get these guys where they need to be and everything, but it's just so inconsistent, and the balance just isn't there half the time.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part.
Yeah,
That's part of it. I mean, I always, at the end of the day, the players play. I've always blamed players for this kind of thing more than I have coaches, because any scheme, reasonable NFL scheme will work if the players are good enough and the players perform. In Washington, they don't.
Well, I don't know about any, but most.
I'm reasonable. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about off the wall. I mean, a
Right.
reasonable. There's not a. I got a newsflash for people. There's not a ton of difference. There's about 3 different schemes, big picture, that they use in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just tweaks and tweaks to it. It's their most of these teams are running sort of the same stuff.
No, of course.
It's not rocket science. And at the end of the day, if Washington had a decent O-line that could have stopped Nick Bosa from terrorizing the Washington backfield, it would have been a different story. And
there are many offensive lines in the league going to stop Nick Bosa anyway.
No, but
it just compounded it even worse that our line is horrible.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they had no answer for Nick Bosa whatsoever.
No. They didn't have any answer for the Giants either with Thibodeau. They're not going to have any answer for Miles Garrett. Nope. I got news for you. They're not going to have any answer for Parsons. They don't want to change what they do to actually help block. That's not who they are.
I mean, maybe run a jumbo set out of a pass. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the only problem is that you look at Logan Thomas. Look at him, and when they try to pull him in the block, he gets run over. They don't have any tight ends that can even. I mean, their tight ends can't even get in the way. I mean, let alone even make a block. So it's like.
I think the last thing a former quarterback turned tight end wants to do is block Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa.
No.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of defensive linemen, though, Chase Young actually had a pretty good game against.
He looked okay.
Yeah. And I mean, he made a nice move on Trent Williams on a one play where he kind of came to the outside, swung to the inside, and pretty much put Trent Williams right on his rear end. You never see that happen.
I mean, he didn't ultimately make a dent in the stats. He was 2 tackles. No. Did he look decent? I thought he looked decent.
He had a batted ball too, right? He had one or two batted balls.
He had one batted ball.
Yeah.
He had 1 tackle, right? Is that it?
2 tackles, 1 solo.
2 tackles.
So he's credited.
Oh, okay.
2.
And do you know how many snaps, Steve? I didn't look up.
I didn't. I can look it up. I didn't look it up. Give me a second.
Because I know they said they were keeping him on a snap count of 12 to 15. I didn't know if they stuck to that.
Yeah, I think he was on. I think by the end of the first half, I think he was at 12 or 14. Right around there.
Give me a second.
Okay.
Let me look it up.
Dave and I will vamp. You know who else actually had a pretty good game coming back was Cole Holcomb. Cole Holcomb. He was in there for a couple of plays, wasn't he?
No, he's out for the year.
Or maybe I'm thinking of Mayo. It was
you're thinking of Mayo.
No, Mayo had that big stop. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Yeah. Slow white quarterbacks, whatever. Or
they all look the same.
They really do. They all do. Unless you can see the awesome mullets, they all look the same. Although they all kind of have the same mullet, I'm sure.
You're being a racist. You're calling all white people the same. Okay,
I'm
Chase
calling
Young.
all white linebackers the same.
Chase Young had 30 snaps.
30?
Yeah.
Okay. So much for the snap count.
Yeah, and Mayo had 46.
46? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was in for Bostic, right? Bostic was out.
Yes.
That's what it was.
And he actually looked better than Bostic in this game.
Dave, you would look better than Bostic.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm trying to give some props to the guy here a little bit anyway.
He's a professional football player. Congratulations. That's my props I give him.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, you know what? He's had a nice little career for himself as a professional football player who plays football.
Absolutely. He's made more money than most people make in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of these guys have. Yeah. So I would say Mayo had 1 or 2 nice plays. Who had the picks or the pick? Was it Forrest?
Hey, Forrest had that tipped one.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So
Forrest was the pick. Yes.
Right. It's hard to throw too much praise on anyone on defense when they get scored on and it's over 30 points. Although part of that is obviously the turnovers, which gave San Francisco some easy.
Hey, I'll tell you
and they also had a defensive touchdown too, didn't they? San Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just say that because that was part of my prediction.
The Heinicke fumble, yeah, you did. I tell you, the
Yes.
most impressive stat of the day to me on either side of the ball, I mean, Dax Milne, 1 for 4 punt returns.
Mhm.
One returned 4 yards, 3 kickoff returns for 54 yards, averaging 18 yards a kick return. Man, that's impressive. I mean, there's a reason that guy is playing. It's got
Oh,
the return
absolutely.
job.
Yeah. Well, they're waiting for his old college roommate to become a free agent so they can get themselves another quarterback. That's
There you
what I
go.
hear. You know, they're playing that game.
I mean, they could have thrown somebody in there and only got 3 yards on the
Mhm.
punt return. I mean, that would have been a disaster.
He was brutal. I mean, what I was watching one return. It was like a second punt return. I think he actually had like somewhat of a seam up the middle. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like I saw him make that cut to go into the seam, and it was like it took him. Yeah, it's like dude, I could have hit that faster.
Washington
And I was
needs to
watching
go
him
track
go. I'm like,
When
Rock
Dax Mill,
Cartwright down.
yeah.
What's he doing these days?
I don't know. I don't know how old Rock Cartwright even is anymore.
It doesn't
Although-
matter. It could be better than what Dax Milne does.
yeah.
you ain't kidding.
Dax Millen, when he actually tries to run, he kind of looks like a person doing the Running Man. Like his feet move way more than he moves. Like
that is true.
he looks like a cartoon, like Scooby Doo, like when he's like trying to scramble and he just goes nowhere.
Well, if so, according to Wikipedia, which is always right,
yeah, Wikipedia.
the last thing that's listed in here for Rock Cartwright is 2016 Cleveland Browns offensive quality control coach.
Oh, that's right. He got into coaching. I remember that now. Yeah.
But it doesn't look like he's in the NFL anymore. So, coaching wise,
Yeah, he's probably coaching some high school.
yeah, don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys do that though, right? Like they'll try to get into NFL coaching, realize it's too much work, and then they just go, high school's fun.
Yeah, right.
They don't need the money.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they don't. I root for these guys not to all lose their money like Clinton Portis.
Actually, we may have to read this later because there is a story. Oh, never mind. This is from years ago. Forget it. I was about to say Rock Cartwright was dropping some bombs about the team, but this is from years and years ago.
Oh, okay.
Never
All
mind.
right. Never mind.
Continue.
Yeah, Rock
It probably
Cartwright's
still
a fun
applies
guy.
today, though.
Probably, yeah. Probably does.
Yeah. Rock Cartwright was a fun player back in the day, man. I put him in that Lorenzo Alexander category where it was just, here's a guy, you tell him to do something, he'll just do it, and he'll try his best.
Guys who can return well, like Brian Mitchell was the king of this.
Of course.
Go north. Go north-south.
Mhm.
However far you get is however far you get, but go north immediately.
Yep.
And that's what the good ones do. They just figure it out, and if they get hit, they get hit.
Yep.
It's these guys like the Dax Milnes of the world who, it's a perfect example. What you're saying is, it's like he's a Roadrunner cartoon, just sitting there
Yeah,
and run around. I mean, that never works.
No, it doesn't.
It's a sign that you don't know what you're doing.
Well, that's what made Devin Hester so good too. It's like as soon as he got the ball, it was strip field. Yeah,
Right.
wherever his wedge block was supposed to be, that's where he ran. And then he would find the seam, make that cut, get the seam. He'd break guys like going for like 30 yards.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Cartwright was different though because he would just run guys over a lot because he was 240 pounds or whatever. Since remember he came to the Redskins as a fullback back in the day, so he was a bigger dude.
I didn't mean to go get us down this rabbit hole.
Nah,
We
it's
have a lot
fine.
to talk
It's better
about.
than talking about getting our butts kicked by San Francisco.
yeah.
I don't know what else we could really even mention. The receivers overall had a decent game. Can we say that at least?
They're
As a
decent
unit.
receivers. I mean, sure. I mean, you had the one drop, obviously, that you guys have already talked about. Terry McLaurin was a professional. What can you say?
Yeah, Terry McLaurin did Terry McLaurin things.
And you got to give Taylor Heinicke credit for that long bomb to McLaurin. It was a great pass, great catch by McLaurin in traffic, but it was also a good pass.
Well, and he had a couple deep passes called back too.
He did.
That were nice.
Yeah. Like that one that Dotson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dotson, other than the drop, had a pretty good day.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Jahan Dotson's going to ultimately be a better receiver than Terry McLaurin.
He could
Well,
be.
My opinions on that.
Yeah. I mean, Dave likes to root for teams that. Do I say it? Yes, of course I say it. I say everything.
Just go ahead and do your Jerry Sandusky bit.
Dave roots for a team that supports child abuse, and so I can't get by that very easily. Dave is not a child abuser, but Dave is rooting for a team that supports and covers up child abuse.
Well, I don't know. They since got rid of the athletic director. The president's gone. There's no signs of
Close your
that there,
eyes.
that
Look over here.
organization at
It's
all
okay.
anymore.
Yeah.
Is
Huh?
that building still a building on this campus where all that happened?
They
Actually,
still.
the Joe Paterno statue is gone. The Paterno building is gone. All
I mean,
that's gone.
they
Everything is
literally
gone.
murdered Joe Paterno just to
Yes.
like make it go away. So I don't know.
I'm
So-
I'm kind of half kidding, but I'm sort of
Yeah.
not half kidding. I just cannot root for Penn State.
I mean,
it was tough.
Yeah.
It was definitely tough. But you know what though? The NCAA did the right thing, and it
By
they
letting
killed
him
the
off the
franchise.
hook?
No, they killed them for
No,
years.
they didn't.
Yeah,
They let the
They
program
punished them.
continue. If there was ever a program that should have gotten the death penalty, it was Penn State.
they
They showed me that
basically
nobody
did
can get
because-
the death penalty. If Penn State didn't get it, nobody's going to get the death penalty.
Well, they basically did in a way because they
Were they
actually
playing football games?
they were still playing
And
football,
they didn't get the death penalty.
but they weren't bowl eligible for 3 years, no
Oh.
matter what their record was. They weren't bowl eligible for 3
Yeah,
years.
But they were playing football.
And they had everyone, but I forget the name of the running back who stayed. But they had all their top recruits wound up transferring out to other schools
But
because
were
they knew
playing
they were
football.
never going to be in a bowl game. And
Did they
knew
get the SMU treatment?
No, they
No.
did not. Not that
There you
far.
go.
No.
I
Bingo.
thought they at least
End of
deserved the
argument.
SMU thing, like be suspended for a couple years.
Yep.
I thought for sure they were going to get that. I was surprised they didn't get that.
They didn't because there's too much money involved.
Yeah, they have the largest stadium in college football. They weren't gonna
Yep.
risk that.
Nope.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we just move on and talk about the
Oh,
quarterback
I'd rather
situation?
harass Dave about Penn State. It's more fun.
You can harass Dave about Carson Wentz versus Taylor Heinicke.
Transition, Alex. Wow, smooth.
Yeah,
That's
unlike
beautiful.
you.
it was not my best. So, Dave, you were texting us earlier that you're starting to do some stat deep diving on this whole Carson Wentz versus Taylor
And when
Heinicke
Alex
thing.
says Dave was texting us, it means he's barraging me with text in the middle of the workday over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes, and your clients are sitting there probably being like, "What is going on?" And
My phone's going, oh, it's just
Yeah.
Dave. Don't worry. He's on a Carson Wentz kick.
yeah. And it's funny, you're like doing all this deep dive stuff, and I'm like, yeah, Dave, I just did that too, and posted some stuff on Twitter.
It's weird that you
yesterday.
guys are doing this and not me.
Yeah. Well, we
But
like
enlighten us,
stats
Dave.
too.
So
We all
here,
like
let me
stats.
set the stage for this.
Yeah.
So the question of the day, I think for all Washington fans and also me, is
Mhm.
that did Ron Rivera make the correct decision? Ron Rivera decided today, apparently, that Carson Wentz is the starter at least this
Right.
week.
Right.
So the question would be, did Ron Rivera make the right decision? And Dave has done a bunch of data mining to help
Right.
figure this out. So Dave, why don't you just tell the people what
Yes
you
or no? All your data mining.
and
what's
then
it
we'll
say?
move on. No, I'm just-
Well, the short answer, do I think he made the right move? No, I don't think he made the right move. Because you look at the numbers, and because for one, you know me, I can never understand the Wentz hate because
Mhm.
the disparity in how the offenses were run when he was under center compared to Heinicke, there were plenty of differences.
Right.
But as Alex had said to me earlier as well, which I agree, that there were a lot of similarities too in terms of their game throughout
There
the
are.
season. You know,
In fact, it's almost ridiculous how similar their stats are.
right? It's like when you have your people for Wentz, people for Heinicke, a lot of people on the Wentz side. So we look at Heinicke, look at all the turnovers he's made, and he's constantly turning the ball over. Well, I got news for all you people who love Wentz, and I love Wentz. I'm a Wentz guy, but when it comes to turnovers, their turnover percentages are almost identical, 1.8% with Wentz, 1.9 on Heinicke. When it
Mhm.
comes to interception percentages, 2.3 and 2.4. I mean, it's like turning the ball over.
That's what stuck out to me because there's a lot of recent high-profile fumbles and interceptions that Taylor Heinicke has done. People
Right.
forget that those stats you just said are insightful. The interception percentage is about the same. Fumble percentage. You know what the difference is? If you look, almost all of Taylor Heinicke's fumbles got recovered by the other team. Carson
Yeah.
Wentz's was like 1 out of 7 or some number like
1
that.
out of 6, yeah.
Yeah, one out
Yeah.
of 6. And so that's just kind of luck because the ball can just bounce wherever it's going to bounce. And so the fact is, what you just said is legit. Turnovers, these guys are about the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Touchdowns, they're about the same too.
Yeah. I think what people focus on is that when Wentz makes a bad decision on a pass, it's a pass that's a deep throw accurately made in a certain spot in the field, and it's like right to the defender. It's like, where is he throwing that ball? Why did he go there? Had three defenders there. Heinicke, on our hand, when he goes deep, a lot of his balls, there's a lot of air under it. And there's a lot of missed interceptions that people saw. That should have been picked. That should have been picked. Well, we could play the what if game all we want. They weren't picked. They weren't intercepted. And yeah, so there's a difference in terms of how each get the ball downfield. So it's like, Wentz is like, man, why is he forcing that there? He had a receiver over there. It was a nice throw. But come on, man. He had 3 corners right there. Where Heinicke, It's just like, my God, you almost hit the Goodyear blimp with that pass. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I think you see that and people react to that.
Let me throw some other numbers out. And Dave, and these are in Dave's stats, so Dave will know the answers. I'm not trying to fool anybody here. Completion percentage. Carson Wentz as a Redskin in Washington, rather, 62.9 completion percentage. Taylor Heinicke, 62.2.
Right.
Carson Wentz, we already went over TD percentage, interception percentage. Quarterback rating, Wentz, 86.3. Heinicke, 89.6. Very, very, very similar. Obviously, Heinicke's a much better rusher.
Sure. I can give you some other stats that I pulled.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So looking at Pro Football Reference, they have a advanced stats thing where they will say what percentage of these guys' passes were accurate versus inaccurate. Accuracy for Taylor Heinicke, 72.8% of his passes they considered accurate.
And let me just throw my standard statistical disclaimer in here. Those aren't objective numbers, really. There's going to be a plus or minus in there because somebody's making subjective judgment as to whether or not it's accurate. And so there's a range. It's a best guess. It's kind of what PFF's doing, but PFF lies to you and tells you it's objective. But go ahead.
Wentz's number, 72.3. So again, a difference of less than 1 percentage point, about half.
Remarkable, really.
Yeah. The only area where I saw a big difference looking at their numbers is the red zone stuff. Because a lot of people, I think, are critical of Heinicke's playing the red zone. They think we're not scoring enough. They blame Heinicke. Heinicke's had, 10 touchdowns in the red zone versus Wentz, who only had, I think, I can't find where I put
5.
it. It was 5. Thank you. Yeah.
5.
So, Heinicke's actually done better in the red zone than Carson Wentz, which is mind-blowing. Neither of them's good. Here's what I see when I look at these numbers. And I know, Dave, you had some other stuff on the red zone, too, we can talk about. But it ain't the quarterbacks. If you have 2 very different quarterbacks and they put up all these stats and they're the exact same, it ain't them. It's your coaching and your play calling. It's the fact that this O-line is garbage. They are both probably getting the max that they can out of a bad team. Mm-hmm. And I think if you put Tom Brady in there, he would struggle too, honestly, because it would be the same problems.
Especially the 2022 Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sure. Maybe not record-setting, what was it?
How about 2015
Brady.
Tom Brady?
Maybe. Yeah. Not that was a different level of something going on. But you look back at that Brady, he had a great offensive line around him. That was a huge part of Brady's success in New England back in the day.
Throw some more stats at us, Dave.
Well, I think you kind of covered everything with the red zone wise. I mean, there really wasn't much. I mean, even for those who want to sit there and say, well, Heinicke had more attempts or more opportunities in the red zone than what Wentz had. Even when you take it down per pass, per play, and so forth, the numbers don't change enough for you to even have that argument. It's just not there. It's not evident.
None of these things are really statistically relevant differences. There's tiny differences in these stats, but the one thing I think is relevant is if you look at Washington's run pass balance during the Carson Wentz era, meaning early in the season compared to now, Washington is running the ball dramatically more.
Yes.
Dramatically more. And
No
that
question.
in terms helps the quarterback out a little bit. Now, is that because they face weaker teams? Is it because Scott Turner woke up and decided to run the ball? Is it a combination of a bunch of different things? It is a combination of different things because they are running the ball more, but they sucked at running. They were They were the worst running team in the NFL early in the season, almost literally as measured. I think they were 31st the last time I remember, early in the season, as measured by yards per carry. They are dramatically better in that now, and so I think that does help Taylor Heinicke's efficiency when there is some run game.
We can, just look at the fact that Heinicke's played 2 more games, and yet they've thrown almost the exact same amount of passes.
Right. That's exactly
I think it's a difference of 10 pass attempts between the two.
Yeah, and so for what I think that affects things.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I think, Alex, you're right in saying that when you have 2 dramatically different quarterbacks, Carson Wentz is huge. He's got a big arm, all of that. Taylor Heinicke's totally different. Their numbers
He's a mobile West Coast guy.
Yeah, I mean, their numbers are kind of the same, and it's not an accident, because the offensive line is the root of all evil on this offense.
Right.
Really is. The offensive line, Ron Rivera ought to be ashamed of himself for think about what happened. At one point in time, this offense had a possible Hall of Famer, a multiple-time Pro Bowl All-Pro in Brandon Scherf, and Chase Rouillet, an up-and-coming Pro Bowl caliber center when he was healthy. They had all those things.
And they were supplementing the last 2 spots with decent players.
Because you can't have it all. Right. Now all of those guys are gone, or, and Rouillet is hurt and hurt and hurt.
Right.
Ron Rivera just said, it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll roll with it. And that's just terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've been ranked in the bottom third in nearly every category or nearly every metric rather that you would measure an offensive line against. I think there was one top 10 category that they were on. I can't remember what it was. But it was so irrelevant.
Is it like the suckiness meter?
I can't remember what it was. It wasn't even that important.
Number one in low snaps. That's what they're number one in. No.
How about blown blocks? Were they number one in blown? Well,
actually, no. You know what it was? It was third and short. I talked about this earlier in the year. In third and short, they actually had a pretty decent win rate off the line, which is why they did well early in the year, like against Philly. Almost every third and short they converted. They could because they had a good to solid or solid to good win rate off the line, getting off their blocks and creating the opportunity for the running backs to get to that first down marker.
Sunshine on the dog's butt every once in a while.
I mean, you got to win something every now and then. You know what I mean? I mean, hey. But
in the immortal words of Tom Petty, even the losers.
Yeah.
I can't even finish that. But back to the numbers and disparity.
Even the losers get lucky sometime, Dave.
Yeah,
that's the end of it.
But back to the numbers and disparity. This is the one thing that stood out the most because they threw the ball almost 15% of the time more when Wentz was the starter, and Wentz had almost 10 pass attempts more per game than what Heinicke had. And you started off the year thinking you can open up the offense, stretch the ball downfield. But man, when you're sitting there and you're getting, now granted the Jacksonville game, you had a pretty good game, was that Detroit game, that first half. I mean, Wentz, I think he sacked like 6 times, knocked down like another 3-4 times in that first half. Yeah. He had no time. And the scripted plays that they had in that game, if I recall, we were talking about that. They were off from play one. They couldn't get anything going. Hutchinson was killing us, blowing up the backfield. And you figure after those couple games, you would realize, what, this just isn't working. Our offensive line can't hold blocks. But that didn't change. It just kept going and going. It was just he kept pushing the ball downfield, calling these plays were for 5 to 7 step drops to a quarterback who has a tendency of taking bad sacks because he wants to throw the ball downfield.
And they didn't even have time for the 7-step drops.
No, absolutely not.
The biggest change really in playing style, just talking about the quarterbacks, to me, has been Heinicke isn't doing 7-step drop plays very often. No. It's, snap the ball, he's in shotgun, and it's basically a 2-step drop and it's out. When they're on schedule, that's kind of what it looks like. It's quick dink and dunk. A lot more mid-tier. I shouldn't say dink and dunk because that sounds like he's throwing it in the flat slot, and he's not.
Right.
But that's kind of what they've been doing with Heinicke. The question to me is, that's your effective passing game. I don't think that's going to change with Wentz. Can Wentz do that? Because that's not his MO.
Well, it's funny you say that because on that touchdown drive he had against, in that game against in San Francisco, he was doing just that. It was a quick passing game, and a lot of people go, "Well, it was soft zone coverages like that." But Jamal broke down that series pretty well. On the most part, San Francisco didn't change anything. They were still applying pressure. They were still bringing a linebacker or a corner or whatever on a rush. They were applying the same pressure on that drive as they were the rest of the game. So it wasn't like they were laying back. And Wentz was getting the ball out. He was on his third step. He was through his progression, and in fact, that touchdown pass, Jamal even broke down and said that he came back and he looked on each stop. He looked at his first 3 progressions and he came back to his second one, which was for the touchdown throw, and it was a beautifully placed right there at the pylon. That's what you said. That was a taste of what you could do with Wentz. Now, can he continue playing within that scheme? I don't know. Will Scott Turner continue to be patient, or continue to be disciplined and run those schemes, run oriented offense, and have a quick passing game? I don't know. We're going to find out. But you had a small taste of what you could get, and if you do that, and that continues to be successful, that now opens up the play action and the rollouts, which is 2 of Carson Wentz's strengths when he was in Philadelphia, especially off of play action. That was the one thing he was phenomenal at doing, of getting the ball out, looking the safety off. The linebacker's being frozen off the play action. He looks the safety off till the receiver gets where he's got to go and he drops it off. That's what he did really well. And Scott Turner, if he plays to that, he could have something he never had with Heinicke. But we won't know until the Cleveland game and against Dallas and see what he does.
Isn't he going to get just pulverized by Cleveland's pass rush, though? Carson Wentz is a statue.
Well, if you think about it, if you can run a quick passing game effectively, because that's what it was. New York did that against us in the second meeting. That's all they did. With Daniel Jones completely took our defensive line out of the mix, because New York's offensive line is no better than ours, and that's exactly what they did. Daniel Jones, 3-step, 5-step drop ball right out, boom, right downfield. It completely took away the defensive line, the effectiveness of it. And if you could do this, and we have the receivers, we can do that. You have Curtis Samuels that you can do misdirections off of. That's already been proven. That's there to do that. They just have to commit to that. And they commit to it like the Giants did to us on the second meeting. Yeah, I think we can neutralize that defensive line, sure.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough task, I think, for them to, get, because Cleveland's got really 2 very good pass rushers, looking forward to Cleveland.
Before you get into that, though, so final say on Wentz versus Heinicke. I'm kind of curious what you got. Did the Washington make the right decision or wrong decision? I'll go first. I don't think it matters. I think there's too many other flaws on the team. I think they're going to get similar performance. I know the fans, I guess, judging from our comment section, are clamoring for Wentz. I think this is just a case of recency bias a little bit. I think we're going to get sort of a similar type of stat. So my conclusion is, sure, start him. He's got a better arm, but I don't think it's going to matter much. That's my.
I I don't think it was the right decision because I don't think Heinicke did bad enough to warrant the benching. Because he still had a good game. He was making good throws. Had a couple bad throws. I get that. Some poor
It's the
decisions.
turnovers.
But you
so,
get
man,
that
I
with
mean, he
Wentz
lost those
anyways as well. You're
turnovers.
going to get that no matter what. Right. So I don't think necessarily Heinicke deserved the benching in that game. But that's just kind of my opinion on it. But in terms of just arm strength and if he can play within the system and just to prove that the trade was the proper thing to do in the off season, sure, let's go ahead and go with him the last couple of games. I mean, what are you going to lose? I mean, you were either not going to make you probably weren't going to make the playoffs with or without Wentz anyway, potentially. So if you can open the field more and you can play within the scheme I just got them talking about, who knows? Maybe you make a run. Maybe we win these next 2 games. Maybe you beat Minnesota in the first round, which I think they're beatable.
Oh,
you know?
sorry, you were serious.
Well, no, I think they're beatable. I didn't say we're going to beat them, but I think they're beatable. Because you got the Kirk Cousins factor. I'm sorry. I do not think that he's going to win or beat any team in the first round.
Kirky Poo's been pretty good for the most part this year.
Yeah, well, yeah, when they backed him in the corner, he's been Kirk Cousins. So
I don't think it matters for this season. I do agree with the move just because they need to see, is this even a thing we need to try to, make work next year or not?
Do they want to keep him or cut him? Yeah.
Yes,
that's the
I agree
only
with that.
logic I see in playing Wentz these last 2 games.
Yeah.
Is can this guy be your quarterback at least for 2 years?
Yeah.
So
because you're not going to keep Wentz and Heinicke next year. You're going to keep one of the two,
Well,
and then you're going to have Sam Howell probably, huh?
They could keep both.
Yeah, but
Taylor
the
Heinicke
finances aren't going to help it. If they want any chance at all to sign Payne, they can't keep both of those guys.
You're taking too simplistic a view of it. Trust me. If you get a genius like me out here to deal with salary cap, I can make it work. I promise you, I'll make it work.
Yeah, I do think they could keep both, but Heinicke's going to have to realize he's a backup still, and they probably have to restructure Wentz anyway. All right, can we talk about Cleveland real quick?
Yeah, real quick.
All right,
look,
can
it's
I
easy,
say
okay?
something? Just get
Yeah,
it
go
out of the
ahead.
way.
Go ahead.
I'm A-okay if they hurt the Deshaun Watson. I know we're not supposed to root for injuries. If you break his leg, I'm not going to be upset, guys. Just putting that out there for the team. Not saying you should, just saying if it happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alex C's taking the high road.
He
So,
should take this.
I can summarize Cleveland in a sentence.
All right.
You ready? Stop Nick
Sure.
Chubb. It's simple.
Very simple. Sure.
It is. It's very
In
simple.
theory.
Nick Chubb makes the offense go. Deshaun Watson has not been great. He's actually been fairly bad.
Right.
And yeah, I don't wish anybody to get hurt, but Deshaun Watson's a scumbag and a slime ball, and I wish him the worst for sure. I don't like Deshaun Watson, all the things he's done. But from an on the field perspective, it's clear he hasn't played very much. It's clear that he's got a lot of rust. They do have some talent in the receiver core, but I mean, Amari Cooper's put up 1,000 yards, no doubt. But it's Nick Chubb, Mr. Pro Bowl starter, 4.9 yards per attempt, over 1,300 yards rushing already. That guy is who makes offense go. And if they stop Nick Chubb, they put it on Deshaun Watson. I think that's Washington's best chance to win.
Yeah, I agree. And if they utilize that quick passing game, that's the only way to neutralize that defensive line. If not, Wentz is going to have a long day.
Run, because Cleveland's run defense has been really bad this year. So the two things, it's exactly. You can't have long 5 to 7 step drops. You can't have Carson Wentz stand there as a statue.
And you got to set the play and you got to set up the play action with that run.
Exactly right. That's what to do. And you got to have the offensive line needs to not look like smoking dog do, and they need to open up some holes and have a consistent running game again.
And I'll be right next to the visitors' tunnel on that game. So if there's any words you'd like me to share with Deshaun Watson, I'm all for it.
You're going to the game, Dave?
Yes, section 113.
He's
right
basically
off the
sitting
field.
right where I sat when I went.
Yep.
So
Dave, what you do is take a sign with you that says, "Hey, Deshaun, I know some Instagram models want their numbers." Do that.
So the one thing I'll also mention about Cleveland's defense, as good as those the pass rushes there, their secondary ain't that great.
No, it's not.
Like the quick passing game should, if you can get the ball out, you should be able to get some yards that way. Like none of these guys really should intimidate
Absolutely.
you defensively, other than Garrett and Clowney.
This
Yeah.
basically really should be the Curtis Samuel show in that passing game in the first half.
And
You
not
need
the
to- you
Curtis
need to
Samuel
stretch-
trying to run the ball game.
No. You need to use Dotson and McLaurin to push the safeties back and cross up the corners and just get Curtis Samuels coming across the field or something like that.
I mean, I think Denzel Ward is probably the star of the defensive backfield, but considering the players that McLaurin and Dotson have faced, I don't think Ward is any better than any of those other guys. You know, so he's their best, but he's a B level best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I often wonder if McLaurin's actually been listening to the show and listening to you lately, because he's been much better against.
I think the world would be much better if everybody listened to me. I'm just full of knowledge today. I've got just a salty attitude today.
Yeah. Like looking at Tony Fields the second.
Who's that?
That's their other starting
I know,
corner.
I'm kidding. Like
Yeah.
who?
Yeah. They don't have a lot there. They don't have a lot going on for them.
So should we do predictions on this game?
Yeah, let's do predictions. Let's just, because I do want to talk about playoff races.
Yeah,
a
I
little
know.
bit.
Yeah, I do too. And I want to get to this trademark stuff.
All right.
Okay, I'll start. I've been going back and forth on this. Usually I do my prediction a couple days ahead of time after I look at the numbers, but I've been going back and forth because these are two mediocre teams. They've been mediocre all year. They've had their ups and downs. Cleveland's very run centric, but at the end of the day, I think it's a home game for Washington. I don't think Deshaun Watson, all his fetishes aside, is really kind of fully there yet. So I think Washington will figure out a way to pull out a low-scoring victory because Washington can't score points. They can't. But I think this is going to be somewhere possibly along the lines of like 23-20-ish, Washington.
I think Turner, realizes he has to coach a game of his life right here. He has to realize what he needs to do with Carson Wentz, and that's not what he did early in the year. He's got to maintain that game plan he did with Heinicke and set up the play action and so forth, and it's there for him to do. If he does that, I think Washington wins. I think Nick Chubb gets his yards. I think he gets his touchdowns. Nick Chubb's not going to get stopped. He's going to have his yards. You just have to just keep putting pressure on Watson and let him just keep folding the way he's been right now, because he, like you said, he's not back to where he was. I think we're looking at a 27-19 Washington win.
And I guess I'll be the minority opinion in this one. I think they are going to be arrogant and full of themselves and think that they can air it out again with Carson Wentz. It blows up in their face very quickly. And I think Washington loses this one, something like 21-10.
I'm kind of offended that I'm the optimist and you're the pessimist here, Alex.
Yeah,
it's role reversal.
We're changing roles at the end of the year.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
You don't like change, Steve.
No,
it's not
I don't.
You're not.
No.
It's not
And
your
the frustrating part too, Alex, is I think you're probably 100% correct.
Oh,
and that's going to drive me nuts this weekend.
That
It's
Scott
wonderful
Turner
not
wants
being
to air
a
it
fan
out still.
anymore, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. If I'm wrong, oh well, who cares?
Yeah. Hey, if I'm wrong, I'll be happy. Picking against the team is a win-win in some ways, because if you're wrong, you're happy. If you're
I'm
right,
usually
you were right.
rooting for the other team anyway in these games anymore. So,
all right. Why don't we? Can we talk? Let's talk playoff situation right now. I'll just run through it really quickly, and then we'll get to the trademark stuff, which I know is a little more fun for us. All right, AFC right now. Bills are in, Chiefs are in, Bengals are in, Ravens are in, Chargers are in. There's one spot left and it's basically Jacksonville or Miami, who are 7-8 and 8-7 respectively. And then behind them, there are a bunch of other 7-8 teams who could, in theory, get in. But the
Titans, Pittsburgh, Patriots, Jets.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where the AFC is. I didn't think to pull up every team's schedule. I gotta think with the Dolphins now losing Tua for the season are probably it's gonna hurt. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all are fairly well aware of what's going on in the NFC. Obviously, 5 spots are already locked up by the Eagles, Vikings, Niners, and Cowboys. Washington and New York are kind of vying for the last 7th seed. Or, I'm sorry. New York has the 6th seed, technically, and Washington would have the 7th right now. There's some stuff in the NFC South because it's a garbage conference. So right now,
Green Bay is 7-8. So here's what it comes down to, Washington fans. Detroit, Green Bay, and Seattle are 7-8, meaning a half a game back from Washington. What this basically boils down to is this: out of those 4 teams, the team that wins 2 games gets in the playoffs. Right. That's what it means.
Exactly.
Because somebody's going to do that. One of these 4 teams is going to win 2 games, and that's going to be the team that gets in.
Right. Schedule-wise, it probably favors the Lions the most at this point.
Yeah.
Seahawks play the Jets, so they're going to be fairly evenly matched. That's a toss-up right now. But Lions have to play the Bears at least next week. So
and Washington's got Dallas on week 8 in the 17th
right. Washington's got
season.
Cleveland and Dallas. So
even if you count Cleveland as a winnable game, which it is, Dallas is tough.
Yeah. Unless they rest all their starters, which is what people are hoping.
Which they won't because they'll be in competition with Philly for the NFC East Championship game.
They might be. They very well could be. If Philly
or at least to stay ahead of San Francisco in the seeding at a minimum.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with this. I think we all know winning you're in. That's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to. So Washington, if you're Washington fans, root for Detroit, Green Bay, and Seattle to lose.
Right.
And a win, and they're in.
And just know that 2 wins, not 1 win, 2 wins will be hypothetically, if Detroit, Green Bay, and Seattle all lost and Washington won,
then
it would be in. But the odds, of that are slim, obviously, just from a statistical standpoint.
Basically, go just go do your job.
Yep.
And you're in the playoffs.
I'm telling you, it's really simple. The team that wins 2 games is going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, you need 9 wins. 9 wins.
And then you're going to get slaughtered in round 1, and it'll be over. So
Right. But at least you'll have salvaged a season, kind of.
Sort of.
Not really. Sort of, kind of.
Listen, when you're a Washington fan, you have to take playoff, when you can get them, because there's been 4 of them in 25 years, 5 of them, 6 of them,
something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about that Hogs trademark thing? Because that's really the off the field story of the week. Washington's going to announce their mascot to just set this up. It's no surprise that they did this stupid mascot contest and took all year. And it was what everyone thought it was going to be. It's going to be a hog. And it was leaked that the hog's name, Steve, you probably didn't see this. You're going to hate the name.
No.
The name for the mascot's going to be Tutty.
Oh, my God. Okay, first of all, mascots are dumb, okay?
Sure.
Mascots
they're for children.
Stupid.
They're for people under the age of 7.
But who, for the name of all that's good and holy, who's the moron who came up with Tutty? I've not heard this before this moment. That is the most god-awful, stupid name I've ever heard in my entire life. Well, that's just absurd.
I had to have multiple people explain it to me because I didn't even understand it.
What is it?
Touchdown. It's a short for touchdown.
No, it isn't.
No, I know.
It's not short for touchdown. That's a stupid name somebody made up, and they're imposing an inaccurate slang name for that is just really takes the cake for stupidity.
Well, would you like to hear the Urban Dictionary meaning of this?
Please go ahead.
I had a laugh at this one.
All right.
The Urban Dictionary says it's a racial and ethnic
Of course it is.
insult against Pakistani cricket players.
That's what tutty means?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
have
in the Urban Dictionary, yes.
Did
I have a
someone
very
send
good
that
friend
to
who is a cricket player
Dave?
from Bangladesh.
I have a task for
verify
you
this.
as your managing editor. I want you to send that to Jason Wright on Twitter and tag him in it. I'm 100% serious. We can do it from the hog stock. You want to piss him off?
We can absolutely, send us the link and let's just put that out there.
Yeah, I want to
Okay.
put that's just too good to pass up because that is the most Washington thing ever, right there.
Right.
We're gonna use
trying
a
to get away from
Pakistani-
this, and no one thought to, check.
It sounds like it's sort of like the N word for Pakistani cricket players, basically.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I have
sent
a
it to
friend
you
who's
now.
a Bangladeshi cricket player. He was on their
That's just-
national team, like
that's
back
so
in the
great.
70s. I'll ask him.
That's
Yeah,
just
it's just
that's
brutal.
great.
Yeah.
Dave has sent this to our group chat. Can you be responsible for tweeting this out?
Yep,
at
I will do
Jason
that
Wright?
post show.
Okay, so look, this week, the Hogs, the real Hogs, not some idiotic mascot,
Right.
meaning Jacoby and Russ Grimm and all these guys, filed a trademark application.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more particularly, an LLC called O-Line Entertainment LLC filed a trademark application back in July 22nd, for the word hogs and then also the word original hogs. And both of those are, and for those of you who don't remember from all my misses during the name change stuff, it takes like a year to get this done because there's a public comment period and the trademark office is slow. And a lot of times when people file these and they don't really know what to do with it, the wording and what they're doing is all kind of the same. And that's how this reads to me.
Mm-hmm.
The goods and services proposed for both of these are exactly the same. And it's clothing, shirts, hoodies, t-shirts, etc., online retail store, entertainment services in the nature of hosting social entertainment events. This kind of reads like people who sort of threw this together because they want to protect their rights, and I understand why, and I agree with them for I'm on their side, but I'm saying it reads to me like folks who threw this together to kind of figure out what to do with it later. That's kind of what it reads to me. But this entity presumably is owned by the Hogs, this O-Line Entertainment LLC. So what will happen here is Washington has not. I tried. There were 1,900 records that had used the word hogs, and I didn't look through all of them. Didn't have time, but I did not see Washington, anybody associated with the team, filing a trademark for this. If they haven't, this will probably get approved, and then Washington will have to negotiate with this O-Line Entertainment LLC to use the hogs, meaning that mascot, if they call him a hog or the Hogs, will automatically have a trademark problem. That's sort of the goal, and so the idea here is these guys are forcing the team to negotiate with them. Basically, they're going to give O-Line Entertainment a percentage, pay them some amount of money, and then they'll, allow them to use the name. That's where this is headed. Thoughts? Silence? Silence isn't good on a podcast.
It's
another ridiculous thing.
It does amaze me that, this team continues to punch itself in the face. And I said face. I went with the nicer thing you could punch yourself in. Like,
Alex
how
was
did you
meaning
screw up this
testicles.
relationship so bad with these players? How? Like, we didn't even know what was happening. And we talk, half these guys on this lawsuit we've talked to, like we've talked to Joe, we've talked with
Doc Walker.
Doc we'll talk to you anytime. Doc's the nicest man in the world.
We'll try to get Doc on this and talk about it.
Do you know how, like, people do not understand how nice a guy Doc Walker is?
He's a very nice guy. He is. All you have to do for all our plan ever was with Doc, just ask him one question, he'll talk for 30 minutes.
Yep. And to get someone that nice to sue you, and Joe, by the way, Joe Jacoby, very nice guy too.
Very super classy, nice guy. We've interviewed him twice. Super class, maybe 3 times we interviewed him.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
Was it? Anyway,
yeah.
very classy, nice guy. Absolutely. What do you need to do to irritate these guys who, by the way, have Super Bowl rings with this team? And to the point where they're going to go through this level of effort, hire a patent attorney whose name I have here, and form an LLC and go through all this. This isn't free. This costs money to do all this stuff. How bad does your alumni relations need to be for this to happen?
Yeah, I'm just astounded outside the players or the legends and so forth that are associated with the team, work for the team and everything, how Dan Snyder has just alienated how many of the Washington Redskins legacy players. I mean, it's just amazing. It's funny too, because it's
funny in kind of a sad, perverse kind of way.
It is, sure, but it's how can you mismanage something that bad?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Snyder writes the book on it. Everything he touches, he writes the book.
When you're a terrible person, a terrible businessman with no common sense and no ability to relate to people, this is what happens. And you throw billions of dollars in ego in there, and it's just a perfect storm.
Yeah, he just can't sell this team fast enough.
This is another reason, by the way. Mm-hmm. This is Jason Wright's fault. Okay, Jason Wright is the team president. Yeah, Dan. Yes, I'm with you, obviously, but Jason Wright is the guy who's supposed to fix stuff like this. Why didn't Jason pick up the phone and call their attorney and say, listen, or call Jacoby directly or whoever, right. Doc or somebody, and say,
Doc's
we want
probably in the building.
Probably,
yeah, right.
And just tell him, we're doing this dumb poll, but the mascot's going to be Hogs, and we want you to be central to it. We want to work with you to do this, and throw some money at them, if they want. And this is the kind of thing that a smart team president, which Jason Wright is not. Sorry, people, he's not. He's okay. He's charismatic, smart guy, great team president. No.
Probably a nice person. I mean,
you guys have both talked to him. I mean,
yeah.
Hey, surprisingly, they haven't invited me to talk. I don't know why.
I mean, he's a nice dude, real cordial, respectful, and everything. But unfortunately, this is just a product of.
It's just another thing.
Yeah, well, this is just a product with an end result of being worried about being too woke, is the word I guess people like to use. Too busy being politically correct or whatever. Too busy trying to appease the fans and, the old and new and so forth. And then he has to appease a narcissist and an owner who, regardless of what anyone wants to say, he still has his handprints on everything on the team, and he's always been there and involved, regardless of good all saying, oh, well, he's never been there for a year. No, you're wrong. He's had his voice there in Tanya Snyder. He's had everything right there. So when you're so focused in all of that, and yet you just alienate everything that made the franchise as great as it was, and you don't go back and, like you said, make a call to every member of the Hogs and say, listen, this is what this is what we want to lean to. This is what we want. This is something you do 4 months ago.
It would have been last summer. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Isn't this common sense? I mean, isn't it completely common sense to this? So, and by the way, Joe Bugle, didn't Joe Bugle come up with I know he's dead, but he has a family. Bring his wife in, to it, or whoever his family is,
Yeah, and I just think Jason Wright took a job and he was so overwhelmed with everything he had to fix, so overwhelmed in having to change a culture from a name that was regarded as being racist and insensitive and all that, and transitioning into a name that wouldn't be, when then eliminating names that might be. I mean, come on, you're playing too much to the culture. You're playing too much to what, to everyone's feelings and sensitivities. I get people's opinions and their passions on certain topics and names and everything, but there comes a time you got to draw a line and say, I cannot bend that much to what you want. You know what? We're going to be the Warriors, period. instead of going, well, we're going to eliminate that because it got some Native American ties. No, don't say that. The fans want Warriors. It gives a tie to the Redskins in terms of what you could carry forward with, and it doesn't even have to be a direct tie to Native Americans. You can use Warriors in any fashion, and you
There's
can
a lot of
market it
Warriors
much
out
better.
there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you could also have even used it towards the veterans and so forth in the military in any way. But when you're too busy playing that game, every step you take, you're going to get
It's
this thing.
amateur hour, and this is another, yeah, I mean, this long, painful, drawn out name change thing that resulted in a name everybody hates and drove me off in part, and all of
It was
that.
a
And
name
then,
that Dan wanted.
well, the reveal itself was amateur hour. The Sean Taylor thing, amateur hour twice, mind
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
This Hogs thing, amateur hour. I'm just not impressed with what Jason Wright has done, and it's certainly working for the spawn of Satan doesn't help.
I mean, look, I think what it all comes down to for me is, to give him some benefit of the doubt, he cleaned house, which he had to do, and that was the right move. I think he probably did a lot of right stuff that we don't see when it came to building a new front office.
And the
Let's
culture.
assume he did.
Yeah.
The problem is they lost all their knowledge of what actually makes this fan base tick when they did that. And
There was a way to
great
keep
point.
people like me as fans,
yes,
and they
there
just
absolutely was.
didn't bother.
I don't think they knew how. They went the route that I think a lot of people go when they don't know anything, and that is they go consultant heavy, and they go, hey, let's do all this like market research, and you don't need market research.
That's what he is. Kinsey is.
Oh, absolutely.
Does that?
That's
That is what he is.
Jason comes from.
Yeah.
I get that. But you don't need market research. You know what you need? You need people. You need to just get a few people in house who bleed burgundy and gold, and just say, figure it out.
I kind of got the sense that all those like fan interactions and stuff. The reason, like Dave and Alex both talked to Jason, and it was both like these like private kind of fan meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
And we got, they knew what the Hogsty is, a name and all of that. And so, but I got the feeling it was all lip service. No, they didn't listen to any of what you guys said. I didn't think.
I think it was not necessarily lip service. I think it was, if you, Steve, suddenly decide, I know you've said you wanted to try and figure out another team to root for. If you had all the money in the world and let's say you pick the Saints and you've never even been to New Orleans, how are you going to figure out what it is to be a Saints fan?
That's the problem.
And that's what Jason Wright was doing.
Yeah.
He's literally like, let me sit down and just talk to a bunch of fans and get their pulse.
Because I did try to watch some Saints games, and I was like, I don't have any connection to this franchise. I can't just turn myself into a Saints fan. And I can't turn myself into a Commanders fan because I don't know who it is, who these people are. There's no connection to what I grew up with. The owner's awful, the front office, all this stuff we've talked about before. There was a way to do this. Like if you'd use Red Wolves, for example, you have a connection to the past. You could have almost kept the same logo and turned it into a wolf's head, the same color, same everything. The Warriors, who could have, like Dave said, there was a way to do, instead of just going, like you guys said, consultant heavy and like they've alienated John Riggins. John Riggins had some comment to the effect of, I don't know how anybody could possibly be a Commanders, if you're a Redskin player, something like that. Right. And he's right, And they don't ultimately care about people our age. They're trying to bring in 16-year-olds.
I think this conversation, and I think this conversation right here is why there are some, if not many, people that think that if a new owner does come in, that a rebranding would be in order. Because in that rebranding, what can you do? You know what? Let's bring in on all the legends of the past. Let's bring in guys that know what the history of this organization truly was. And let's try to get some semblance of that back. Let's try to pull some of that in, because if you pull in the Hogs and the Posse and you pull in all these other greats and everything, and you bring in Sean Taylor's family, you bring in, Joe Bugle's wife or whatever and all that, you bring them all in and say, listen, we want to get this right. you're gonna reinvigorate a fan base going, well, hey, these are people I recognize. These are people that represent what I cheered for. I know Redskins is never going to come back, but maybe we can bring a little bit of that legacy back into that building again, and that's the path you need to go. And that's where.
Whatever you do, don't have a 2-year struggle session over it.
No.
Take a few weeks or whatever and decide and do it.
Yes.
Right. And here's the thing, Steve. To do that right, you need to have, again, institutional knowledge and a gut feeling for what would work. And they lacked all that.
Yes.
But that Hogs would have worked. You were naming just
Hogs
things that would
another one that could have connected people. Sure.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. There were probably 4 or 5 names that could have done it, and they picked none of them. So.
But please, credentials for training camp, Washington.
Yeah, I've given up on. Well, good news. I asked Rick Snyder this
I'm kind of proud of it,
on Twitter. Well, with the new ownership coming in, all likelihood, I assume Jason Wright's probably gone next year too.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Or once the new owners come in, because they're going to want their own people, regardless. Even if you think he's doing a good job, you just want your own people.
I'm kind of proud that we got run out of the building.
Yeah, a little bit. And by the way, you heard the bids supposedly have been sent in, and they're over $7 billion, Steve.
Billion, but not million. But yeah,
I said billion.
Oh, I thought you said million. We knew what you meant.
Yeah, it's crazy numbers.
It's insane.
These numbers just get more and more.
I'm just telling you guys. For those of you out there, Jeff Bezos fans, you don't know who Jeff Bezos is. I do know who Jeff Bezos is for reasons I'm not going to talk about here, and. He's not a nice guy. He has a bad reputation at Amazon. It's not going to be what you think. I would rather have someone else than Bezos if I were a Washington fan.
Well,
yeah, but unfortunately, that's the only type of guy he's going to get anymore.
Bezos is a little different. But he's so rich that he's going to chill the bidding if he's involved.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna. That's what happened with the Broncos, because the people who bought the Broncos were Waltons, and they just have so much money, even in billionaire circles. It's like when they're in, But Bezos on top of that, bringing Jay-Z in, it's a gimmick, and I'm just.
It's Matt McConaughey too, which is weird.
Well, it's a gimmick, and it's not. It just no. I would root for multiple other people if I were invested in it.
Oh yeah. I would rather see. There's 3 or 4 names that I've seen that I'm like, oh, that guy might be.
Byron Allen is a smart guy. Byron Allen, that would be a good one. There's others.
Yeah. There's been so many names bantied about.
Now, see, the NFL absolutely wants Bezos in there, but someone like Byron Allen, that would give you your first. Well, they do.
I'm not one to get all involved in race, and it's kind of another show. I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but what's objectively true is that the NFL is begging for a racial minority to be the principal owner.
Right.
They're begging
not
for that.
counting Khan. What's his name?
Shad Khan. No, he's not the right kind of minority for them.
No.
So
they want an African American.
And they would probably take an Hispanic as a backup if they had to.
Yeah, they don't want a guy from the Middle East. They don't want someone from Asia. They want black.
They want African American. They do.
Yeah. And anything I've read on Byron, I've never heard any of his interviews, but anything I've ever read on him seems like a very genuine, good person. He's one of the few on this list right there that I would go, that would be a guy I wouldn't mind seeing what would happen, what he would do. And he could be the type of guy, from what I sense, that would do what we kind of talked about in terms of, hey, let's try to bring everyone back into the mix here. Let's bring some of these legacy players back in here and all this. He's a guy that might just do something like that. Bezos,
no.
Bezos will change the colors and call them the Amazonians, for crying out loud.
Yep. So. There would be a thing, I'm sure. All right, guys, we should wrap it up, and we will call it a show here. And once we actually do know who the owner is, I'm sure we'll do a special thing about that.
We'll have an emergency podcast.
Yes,
I like
emergency
podcast that day. I insisted on it being a Hogside late night episode when that happened.
I like
it. Yeah, as long as I'm in the country, because I'll tell you guys about that later. All right, talk to y'all later.
Take it easy.
Are you being kidnapped?